Nintendo and Sega duke it out at CES. Mortal Kombat looks to be a winner, and Soundblaster gets competition. These stories and many, many more on this episode of the Video Game Newsroom Time Machine.
I've been waiting a long time for a chance to say this. Stop the presses.
Requiescat in pace.
Makes him crazy, man. What is a man?
It's me, Mario.
What a mess.
Get over here!
Please save me.
Welcome back to the Video Game Newsroom Time Machine, the show where we travel back in time to find out what was making headlines in the home computer and video game industries of yesteryear. This week, we're going to be going back 30 years to find out what was going on in August of 1992. I'm your host, Carl, and I'm joined again by everybody's favorite co-host, Wouter. Welcome back to the show, Wouter.
Good morning, Carl.
Yes, morning recording. So nice.
Yeah.
I'm actually awake.
Yeah. when it gets so late, it's like sometimes I feel my brain is gradually turning off, but now I'm actually really on. So that would be good.
Yeah, let's get it on. Okay. Before we do, though, we obviously have to do the obligatory podcast banter. So, what have you been up to? Stream?
Yeah, I've done a lot of streaming. I wanted to have that affiliate thingy on Twitch. That's when, yeah, you can make money out of it if you finally reach that. You have to do certain goals. You have to have some average viewers and a certain amount of time on stream. And I think I've reached it yesterday night, and I probably can make a ton of money now.
Oh, yeah.
Probably 2 cents per stream or something. I don't know. But we'll see. But I just saw a goal, and I thought I need to reach that. And now I can actually play other games as well, because I really wanted that average viewer count, so I had to play Quake all the time because I have a lot of people who want to watch that. And I think I reached it now, and now I can play other games. And I actually played an NES game, a new NES game. It's called Witch and Wiz, and it's a really cool game. And I played that on stream, but there was like 1 viewer or something, so it's not popular. But it's a really cool new NES game. It's made, I think it's released last year. It's like a puzzle platformer game, a little bit like Sokoban. You know,
okay.
You probably know that. Yeah. But then side scrolling, so you have to push boxes around, and you have to touch every enemy to complete the level, and you can't jump, so you have to move boxes around and go on ladders and walk over there. And it's a really nice game, and it's similar as the game Cat Trap. It's really an uncommon game, I think, but it's a Game Boy game I used to play as a kid a lot. And Cat Trap, and in Japan it's called Pitman. And
Okay.
Also, I really recommend playing that game. It's a really fun puzzle game, really chill, and it's quite similar. But Witch and Wiz has some new game mechanics in there. And I talked with the developer, and he actually said, it's inspired by Cat Trap, and you really can see that. So really cool.
Oh, very cool. And it almost sounds like one of the games that could have been the 7 Minute in Heaven game today, which was Krusty's Funhouse.
I played that game in the Super NES, and it's I think it's similar because it's also a puzzle platform, but this is Witch and Wiz is more like more chill game, I think. Krusty Funhouse is a bit stressful, but Witch and Wiz is just staring at the screen and thinking about the solution. There's just one single screen, and every puzzle is one single screen, and you can just stare a long time to the screen and think about the solution and then suddenly it hits you. While Krusty's Funhouse, you have to walk around constantly and manage all those
The mice, the rats.
The mice.
Yeah.
So it's more like Lemmings, I think, Krusty's Funhouse.
Yeah, it's Krusty's Funhouse is Lemmings meets a 2D Sokoban or something like the Lost Vikings.
Yeah, it's actually it's based on it's a reskin of a Amiga game, right?
It started out as an Amiga game. The Amiga game never gets released. Well, it does get released because there is an Amiga port of Krusty's Funhouse. It's started out as development as an Amiga game, and then they bought the rights and reskinned it to look like The Simpsons.
It's actually one of the few Simpsons games I like.
Especially from that period. This is back when Acclaim had the license and the games were not necessarily what you would call great. But as Greg Fischbach, co-founder of Acclaim, said, back then it was a marketing gimmick or a marketing-driven business. Mm-hmm. As long as you could get people to buy the game, you didn't really care if it was good or not.
Well, that's apparent.
Yeah.
But Krusty's Funhouse is still not super great. A lot of people hate it, but I have warm memories of it.
Oh, I have extremely warm memories. I still have my box copy of the Amiga version. So it's one of those games that just struck a chord with me because of the humor and just trying to figure out the levels. And they got so big at a certain point, keeping a perspective of what was going on became one of the big challenges. So
it's also really European, I think. So Ethan probably hates it.
Would not surprise me in the least. But hey, it's okay. It's okay. Now, that brings us, of course, to our first segment on the show, the 7 Minutes in Heaven. But before that, let's just give a quick plug to the show itself. So remember, everybody, if you want to support us, please go to Patreon for $1 a month. You can get early access to our interviews. There's currently 4 interviews up there. The latest one, the second part of my interview with Leonard Trammell about his time at Atari, the birth of the ST, the Lynx, Jaguar, and so much more is on there, as well as the downfall of the company. So if you want to access that early, and it probably won't hit the regular feed for maybe 4 months, you can donate $1 and get access to that right now, as well as, of course, the video version of our 7 Minutes in Heaven videos or segments. Now, also remember, follow us on all the Twitter and all that good stuff, and everything we talk about. Links are in the show notes. Please don't feel uncompelled to go and check those out because, further reading will always help. With that being said, we did have an illustrious list of games that were up for 7 minutes. This time we had Amiga Classics, Pushover, and Degeneration, and Project X. We had even C64 Classic Creatures 2, PC games like Leather Goddesses of Phobos 2, Mad TV, and Aces of the Pacific, arcade games like PP and BBs, which, that would have just been weird. The Lynx, quote-unquote, classic Kung Fu, and, of course, Street Fighter 2 for the Super NES. But you, sir, decided to go with an NES game, Noah's Ark.
Yeah, a lot of those games I already played or am familiar with, and I recently started playing NES games a lot, so I thought this could be interesting. Also, I thought it was the unlicensed game, and I'm a Game Boy collector, so I'm really used to jank, a lot of janky games, and I actually can appreciate games which other people don't. So I thought maybe there's something in there, and
we'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a moment. So, are you ready for your 7 minutes in heaven?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
literally
don't go revealing that you already played the game. People are supposed to think that, ooh, this is the point when you're going to go off and play it.
That's true.
Oh, man, you're breaking the illusion. People are going to start thinking we don't actually travel back into the past.
Okay. Let's try it. We can record it.
No. I'm too lazy for that. Okay. Off you go. Welcome back, Wouter, from your 7 minutes in heaven. So, for the uninitiated, how would you describe Noah's Ark on the NES?
It's a platformer, like Mario style, and also a platformer like Mega Man style. And you shoot and you jump on heads of enemies, and you play as, I guess it's Noah, but it's like a cute bearded man sprite, and a really nice looking sprite and a nice animating sprite. And you walk around in the levels, 2D platformer levels, and while you do it, the water is slowly rising. So there's like a gray water effect on screen, and you actually have to hurry up, I think, to beat the boss on the end of the level, or the block on the end of the level to unblock the world again, and then the water flushes away. And in the meanwhile, you destroy some snails and crabs and stuff like that. And it's really beautiful looking game for NES. I mean, there's already SNES games at that time, but for NES, it's a great looking game.
Cool. And this game, as far as I can tell, only got a release in Germany. And I do not know why. Granted, Germany was one of the last territories to really have a push by Nintendo for the NES. And it is being published by Konami of Germany. It's made by a company called Source Research and Development Limited, which suggests that they're English because of the limited. So,
yeah, but it didn't feel like an European game. It played really like a Japanese platformer for me.
Well, and that's the weird thing. I don't know anything about this company. I'm actually looking at their entries right now on Moby Games. They only have 3 games listed, and if I have anything to go by here, let's see if these guys made any other games. We have no credits for this game. We do see that one of the guys did go off and did graphics for a ton of stuff, but it's clear he's clearly English because he also did the graphics for at least one version of Samurai Warrior, Ronnie Goes to Hollywood, Psycho Soldier. These are all the home ports of some of these games. Space Crusade, so definitely English.
He did a great job.
Yeah,
maybe he got some teachings of Konami games when he made this.
Yeah, and he also did animation on Comic Zone, so at some point he switches to being in the U.S. But it is an interesting thing to see. This is just a weird thing that doesn't make any goddamn sense. That this game is the way it is.
And also, it probably didn't sell well. I mean, if you only release it in Germany at the time, I don't know, was the SNES already released in Europe at that time?
The SNES has already been released.
Okay, and also
wait. No, the SNES has been released because we get reviews of Super Probotector this month. So it's already
just
been released in Europe.
probably. And also I don't know what the popularity of the NES was in Germany, but in the Netherlands it wasn't that big. So yeah, it's a really rare game, I think, and not a lot of people know about it. Or bought it.
Yeah,
and I expected like unlicensed trash game by some kind of American biblical company, just to keep children away from video games or something. But I was I was happily surprised that it was actually a good game.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, the only reviews I could find were from German language magazines. I'm looking now at the Wikipedia entry for it, and they are saying that Source R&D, the developer, was British, which pans out, and they're actually crediting the same people who are on the other games. And I'm just wondering what hardware is in that cartridge. That's what I would really like to know, and I'll probably have to look. I'll look it up, and I'll put something in the show notes if I find it.
You want to know because it looks so beautiful?
Well, because there's so many sprites on the screen at the same time and on the same scan line, and the amount of animation that's going on just isn't typical for an NES.
It looks like a TurboGrafx game, I think.
TurboGrafx would have a very different palette. It is very much an NES palette.
It has that palette, but I also played Bonk on TurboGrafx, for example, and it's not that different for me. Maybe it's a bit limited in colors, but the rest is, the sprites are nicely detailed, and I can't get over how great this game actually is. I want to continue playing this.
And the weird thing is, the reviewers didn't really care for it.
Yeah, but it's also maybe because the SNES released. So people are already over the NES, and maybe it's just a time.
I think one of the things that is getting this game, that is making this game's life difficult, is the fact that it is the thing that they kept talking about was that the auto-scrolling of the screen to the right, where you couldn't go back.
Oh, really?
Was it
I didn't even notice it.
No, was it auto-scrolling or not? No, it's just that you couldn't go back. That you couldn't go back.
Yeah, like Mario 3 or something.
Exactly.
So it's more like about when it released than, because now we can just play Mario 1 and play it like, oh, that's a brilliant game. But you can also can't walk back.
Of course.
So it's not that it's a terrible game because you can't walk back, but maybe at that time it was like, in Mario 3 you can walk back, it's better. But now I think, why would you have to walk back? It may just be that the design felt outdated at that point. But whatever the case may be, it got 60s in the magazines, and so just considered a little too difficult, a little too limiting at the time. It didn't feel difficult either, so the reviewers were wrong. Go play this game.
Okay, we have an unconditional recommendation here of people. Go and play Noah's Ark for the NES. Okay, so before we can keep going, we do need to check in with our good friend Ethan for the Department of Corrections to find out what I got wrong in July of 1992.
Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
the Department of Corrections.
This call is subject to recording and monitoring. To accept charges, press 1. You may start the conversation now.
Welcome back, Ethan. So, before we get started on everything that I got wrong in July of 1992.
While I was there.
since you were the co-host, I had the other co-hosts get together and debate about what the Ethan comment should be. And, well, let's let Mads take it away.
Bunch of being right all the time is so wrong whenever he speaks about the greatest system ever made, the mighty Amiga. Not only is it the best computer ever made, it was also, for many years, the best place to experience strategy, adventure games, puzzle games, and RPGs. You know, those genres where you actually have to think.
So that was the agreed upon Ethan comment for the episode.
All right, well, my response to that is then why am I continuing to play action games? And, of course, the answer is that action games are what was popular on the Amiga. I'm not saying that there wasn't good games on the Amiga or that they didn't have some very interesting strategy games, especially because it was one of the few platforms that really emphasized the mouse and whatnot. But, yeah, that's not what was popular on the Amiga, so you cannot use it as the demonstrative example.
Not popular on the Amiga? What?
On the larger scale, if you look at everything that was on the Amiga, it's action games. It's arcade-style action games, because that's what was popular in Britain.
Well, Britain wasn't the biggest market for it. Germany was. And if you look at the German market, it was dominated by strategy games, especially economic strategy games. They were the bread and butter because you couldn't sell violent games. Those were on the index. So while, yeah, the English were popping out 8-bit ports to the Amiga, the market that was actually selling the most Amigas was very much a strategy and simulation market. But Mads wanted me to let you know that this was all jest and good fun, and he loves you very, very much. And I'm not doing the little kiss emoji thing, so that he did add to his comment.
Well, straight back to all the other co-hosts. But yeah. The one person we don't love is in the room right now, so welcome, Carl.
Oh,
welcome.
Yes.
Welcome to the Department of Corrections for July 1992. I've been given my roast, and now it is time to roast you in return.
Roast away.
Okay. So there's a couple things I missed in the middle of all this. Sometimes it was honestly because I couldn't always hear what he was saying because I was talking over him. So
okay, that's always
it took until I re-listened to the episode to be able to know. First of all, there was a Flash game you were trying to remember the name of. The name of it was Road of the Dead.
Yeah.
That is a much later Flash game than stuff that I played. I played back on old Newgrounds in mid-2000s, so that was not what I was talking about when I was going into what Flash games were like and how that was similar to
I played that in 2005. And I know specifically it was 2005 because I spent many, many hours in my office in Switzerland playing it. That's when
then it was less advanced than the version that I saw, but whatever. That's okay. Road of the Dead. Then you said Gold Star was a label of Panasonic, and it was not. It is a completely separate company.
Oh, really? Okay. Yes. Is it also part of the Matsushita family?
Nope.
Or? Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Gold Star is a completely separate company.
Gotcha. Are they still
not known for a lot? They are. I think they were absorbed into another company, but it was not Panasonic.
Okay, cool.
Actually, it was like, as I recall, they were absorbed like right after they got out of the 3DO thing. So yeah, the Gold Star brand has been dead for years and years.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember VCRs and stuff with Gold Star on them back in the 80s. But...
Yes. That's why they got into the 3DO standard, because they were, copying the VHS way.
That worked out well for them.
Indeed. Ambitions, trip, you ambitious man. And lastly, something you cut out of the episode, but I'm going to get you on anyways.
Yes.
We were talking about some of the D&D games, and you mentioned a D&D game that came out, Menzo Baranzen, but it was not on the Dark Sun engine, is what he said. It's a first-person game, so it could not be.
Yeah, I believe it's using the same engine as the Ravenloft games.
Yes.
That they came out.
Well, no, that is one of the Ravenloft games.
No, Menzo Baranzen is Forgotten Realms.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, that's the city of the Dark Elves.
Yeah, they made a bunch of real-time 3D adventures, like kind of in the vein of Ultima Underworld, because it was not like Eye of the Beholder where it was just step-based. But yeah, it was not very successful implementation of the rules.
Yeah, it wasn't great tech. It looked dated, and it also wasn't a great implementation of the rules, and you ended up losing a lot of the strategic elements that would have made combat more interesting. So they probably should have gone more with something similar to Amber Moon, where you could move around in a 3D environment, but as soon as it went into combat, it moved to a turn-based grid system, which they did not do.
It's complicated, but
yeah,
whatever the case. That's all for the Department of Corrections this time, because I was there to help you along the way. But this time, in August 1992, I will not be there, so I will see you next time for August 1992.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Until next time, Ethan, thank you for your service.
So long.
So I didn't expect a lot of corrections when he was on the show.
And you did not get a lot of corrections when he was on the show.
He could correct, but did he correct him himself? I don't know. I think he's not that
really
critical of
himself.
No, of course not.
Well, no. If he didn't get anything wrong, there's nothing to correct. So
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Now he didn't catch everything at the time, but hey, it all worked out for the best. Or something.
That's cool. I have to get back at what I said the last time. I really like this his stuff. I really like the corrections. So.
Of course.
Last time.
I mean, the show wouldn't have the quality that it does without the corrections. We need them.
Yeah, because or else it would be worthless.
Exactly. I wouldn't say worthless, but let's not go that far.
If there's nobody who correct it, then then you can just talk about everything and say it's true.
So basically, like most politicians, just talk out your ass and then double down when somebody points out that you got it wrong. That's cool. I dig it. Okay, but enough about that. Let's stop talking about the past and let's talk about a different past. Let's turn on the time machine and head back to August of 1992.
Sega CD. 1992. Joystick to a whole new world.
Welcome back to August of 1992. Wouter, what is our first story?
Mortal Kombat is raking in the quarters. Computer? Yeah. Mortal Kombat is raking in the quarters.
Yeah. Hard to say for a European. We just, normally talk about coins in real terms of what they're worth, but oh well. Quarters actually does. It's not a topic.
We had kwartjes.
Kwartjes?
Kwartjes. That's 25 cents.
25 cents.
25 cents in guldens. So
wow, you guys actually had those.
Yeah, kwartjes and stuivers and 5 cents or stuivers and we had all kinds of names for every coin we had. So
okay, so you guys were just as messed up as the United States. I dig it. That's cool. I like it. Now, the only thing we had in Germany were Groschen, which was a term for 10 Pfennig pieces. So like 10-cent pieces. But other than that, everything was just, the straight value.
Oh, yeah, we had Rijksdaalders. That's 2 gulden 50, and even all the notes, banknotes had different names. So.
Oh wow, you guys.
Yeah, we upped it up. We was like in a different league.
That's scary. But something I will now have to link to in the show notes. Okay. First reports are that Mortal Kombat, spelled with a C according to Replay magazine, is earning stunning numbers at test sites. The game should already be hitting distributors by press time.
I remember Mortal Kombat being a really big thing, even when I was 8 at the time. I think, 8. And
wow.
Even then, I remember Mortal Kombat was like the big thing. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that it did well.
Yeah, and this is a big deal for the coin operator community because other than Street Fighter 2, it's been a while since there's been a really big coin earner. And so they're hoping for something to break the drought. And Mortal Kombat is going to bring that. And there's two other games that they talk about also supposedly earning really well. One is Namco's Coca-Cola Suzuka 8 Hours. It's basically a souped up looking version of Hang On, a motorcycle racer. It never really does all that well. I played it a few times back in the day. I wasn't impressed. And then Atari has this new game called Space Lords, which is sort of an arcadey version of like a Wing Commander game, but with terrible art direction. That's also not going to go anywhere. But
Mortal Kombat it's like a show. It's really a show game. It's really when you watch it, it's like watching really good a show. It's like really
Well, it's digitized imagery. You get the blood effects and everything else. It was
just a spectacle.
Just a spectacle, and it's actually part of a larger trend. I mean, there have been games with digitized sprites in the arcades and at home already. Pit Fighter, and there was Save the Hood or whatever it was called, another terrible game by Atari. But this is the one that's really going to solidify that. And we're going to talk a lot more about CES in just a moment, the Consumer Electronics Show. But that's another big trend at CES right now with the rise of multimedia, with the rise of CD-ROM, that virtually all the big titles coming down the pipeline seem to be betting largely on, digitized graphics.
Yeah, I remember that was all the rage at that time. But I think only Mortal Kombat did it right. Maybe.
Well, I mean, a lot of games are going to use this. A lot of the CD-ROM games are going to use this. The FMV games are going to be using it. But yeah, the only one that really sort of survives this cluster of games that are doing digitized sprites is going to be Mortal Kombat.
It's also because the digital sprites really, like the animation, really looks really clunky on those digitized sprites most of the time. And somehow Mortal Kombat did that right. So that's really great that they succeeded in that. It still looks great.
Yeah, it still looks great. Well, I mean, it's aged. There is a certain amount of rose-tinted glasses. If you didn't know the game back in the day, it looks a little janky. But at the same time, in comparison with a lot of other games that are trying to do the same thing, it's impressive. Very, very impressive. But okay, we're going to get back to CES later. But, digitized fighting game, big earner for the arcade owners. It's coming.
Okay, let's continue on. Capcom does 180 on championship upright exclusivity.
Yeah, sorry, that was a tough one to read. After a barrage of counterfeit and parallel board imports of Street Fighter Champion Edition have been hitting the U.S. market, Capcom has changed course on their policy of only releasing Champion Edition as a standalone cabinet in North America. Starting in July, Capcom has made a kit version of the game available to operators.
So there were a lot of people copying around Street Fighter boards, I guess.
Oh yeah, this is a huge business. I mean, it's hard to imagine how big the Street Fighter 2 phenomenon was. I mean, it was everywhere. gas stations, convenience stores, pizza parlors, arcades, bowling alleys. There was hardly a place you could go where you wouldn't see a Street Fighter II cabinet. And this is also coming at the same time, and we talked about this last year quite a bit. The AMOA, the Operators Association, has successfully lobbied to get parallel board imports legalized. So it's legal now for a very short period of time. It's statutorily limited that you can import an arcade board from Asia. And as long as it was a legitimate board, so it was something that, for example, Capcom had actually sold in Asia, then you're allowed to use it to earn money in North America.
Okay, so these boards are originally...
The parallel ones are legal.
Okay.
What's not legal are the counterfeit boards, the ones that Capcom didn't originally sell, where somebody has just made a copy of the ROM chips or whatever else. And there's
I wonder if that also plays the same, those copied boards. I'm not a close enough historian of Street Fighter II. There may have been one or two little move changes when they brought it over. The big difference is, of course, it's named differently. So this is Hyper Fighting Edition as opposed to Champion Edition. Mm-hmm. So in Asia, it's called Hyper Fighting. Okay.
And slightly different color scheme on the front screen and stuff like this. Probably also doesn't have the FBI warning or whatever warning was attached to the game.
Okay, but that's the legal stuff. But the illegal stuff, like I remember you also have like counterfeit NESs or something, and they have like wrong timings or really weird glitches with certain games. Or I wonder if that's...
I'm sure that there are some variations like that out there, and I just don't know enough to say exactly what is off on that hardware. But the big issue is that Capcom thought they were going to make an extra buck by forcing all the operators to buy a whole new cabinet.
And they thought, we just import the board and go on with our lives.
Well, and exactly, because Capcom had released Champion Edition as the kit in Asia.
Okay.
Yeah. But, for North America, they were like, no, we're going to sell you the whole damn cabinet, which, of course, they can charge a lot more money for. Yeah. And now they're just coming under pressure because the sales of the cabinets are not nearly as high as they should be, because everybody's just like, you know what, we've got the back door. And this is exactly what the legalization of the parallel market was meant to do. It was meant to force a company like Capcom to not hold the operators hostage when a game was really hot, and offer it as a kit. There's no physical reason why an old Street Fighter II machine should not now house a Champion Edition. It's got the same number of buttons. It's got the same layout.
Yeah, only the artwork on the outside is different.
Yeah, the cabinet size is also a little bit different. The original Street Fighter II cabinet was a specially designed, slightly wider box than a normal cabinet. When we talked to, I want to say it was Joe Morici, he talked about this because Capcom had hired out another company to develop it. And they wanted a specialized cabinet for it. It was a little bit wider than a normal cabinet. And the new Street Fighter Champion Edition is a regular size cabinet, so it'll fit better into places like convenience stores and stuff.
Right. So there is something to say. Maybe there was some interest maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not that hard to add extra buttons to any old cabinet. Sure. If you had a double dragon, okay, cool. The front panel, you're going to drill a couple more holes, and now you've got your 2-button joystick controller is now a 6-button. Congratulations, move on.
Yeah.
It's a piece of particle board.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm oversimplifying slightly, but yeah. So Capcom has had to turn around And this comes in the same month where the coin-op trade magazines are reporting how they've been cracking down on illegal Street Fighter boards. And there's 3 big razzias, 2 in Asia, 1 in New Jersey, that altogether they capture over 1,500 Street Fighter boards.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're talking coin-op. Coin-op, if you sell 20,000 units, it's like a mega hit.
Mm-hmm.
So just capturing 1,500 in 1 month, illegal boards, and that's just the ones they caught, is already a huge deal.
And at this time, did you already have the JAMA connector?
Oh, yeah. The JAMA connector is... Ooh, that's a good JAMA standard.
Because that would make it extra easy to just buy a board from outside of the US and just connect it and go on with your life.
Yeah, when did they introduce the JAMA standard? The JAMA standard. Yeah, that's already comes in the 80s.
Oh, really? So that's. Yeah, that's basically plug and play, as far as I know.
It's as close to plug and play as you can get. Obviously, when you have new types of controllers, like 6 buttons and stuff, you're going to have to do some wiring, some plugins to make all that work. But it's fairly standard. So
probably I can do it.
These kits, anybody, especially an operator, knows how to plug those in.
Okay, cool.
And that's why the operators are like, dude, we only have so many months, and we'll talk about this. It's another story, but the home ports are coming. So they know that their time of exclusivity as coin operated machines is limited. They want to hit while the iron is hot, and Capcom.
Yeah. Also, I can imagine a board replacement is faster than getting a whole new cabinet.
Well, in number one, you can probably, a lot of this stuff, as long as you don't have to drill new holes in it, you can probably do it even on site.
Yeah, but also ordering just a board, probably it's faster at your place than ordering your whole cabinet.
Of course. I mean, there's so many benefits here for the operator. It's just Capcom would have made more money with a new cabinet.
Yeah, but in the end, did they make more money? Probably not.
Of course. I mean, they're charging way more than that cabinet. I mean, the cabinet's just particle board and stuff. It's the up price for the cabinet was more than covered.
Okay, so it was still a good move for Capcom to do this.
It was a good move, except that obviously
not great for the
they probably lost sales to the illegal imports, because I remember playing hyper fighting editions of Street Fighter in U.S. arcades. I mean, those boards were out there; they were everywhere.
And those were just in English.
Well, I mean, it's Street Fighter 2. What are you reading?
Yeah, that's true, but I can imagine it's strange when you walk into an arcade and play a fully Japanese written game that you think.
I mean, the only thing that might have been in Japanese, if it was an actual Japanese board, not maybe a Hong Kong board or for other Southeast Asian countries, is if you actually beat the game, the end sequence, the winning sequence, which is a little, couple of images and some text. Those may have been in Japanese, but all the names of the characters and stuff were all in English. So
maybe the comments when you get beaten in Super, there's like a comment. It's like an icon of your face beaten up, and then there's a comment, something like that.
Good point.
But that's it. Yeah,
can't remember.
Like the gameplay isn't affected. So
Yeah.
Okay.
So, fun stuff.
Let's talk more about Asia. Song downloads come to karaoke.
Yes. Brother Industries Limited in Japan has announced the October release of Joy Sounds, a new karaoke system that comes loaded with 3,000 songs and compressed still images for backgrounds. The really impressive bit is that new songs can be downloaded from over 300 computer servers scattered throughout Japan.
Oh, that's really early for downloading songs. It's probably MIDI files, right?
No. Well, it could be MIDI files. It could be something along the lines of a mod file, so using samples. I don't know. But also remember, you're not downloading them in real time to stream. You're downloading them to have in the catalog.
Sure, but still, and it's like a song is maybe you probably didn't have MP3 compression, so it would be when you have a real song, you would have a WAV files. They're probably like 80 MB or something, 80 megabytes, something like that. Downloading that stuff in 1992, that's a big
they've
big
got to
file.
be doing some kind of compression on it. Also, remember, you don't have vocals on these songs, so I mean, a mod file would do it, like the old Amiga mod file format.
Yeah, the tracker files.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get a tracker file down to maybe 200K with a whole bunch of samples thrown into it.
Yeah, but then that's still not the real.
But it's
music
karaoke.
track.
It's karaoke.
Yeah, sure.
You don't really care.
I've been in karaoke in Japan in, I think, 2010 or something, I guess. And there was still just like sort of MIDI files playing and not the real music. So.
Well, and that would also explain how they got 3,000 songs on the system.
Yeah, because or else
hard drives at the time are not that big yet.
So yeah, it's probably doing some kind of MIDI or mod files or stuff like that. Yeah. Interesting.
But this is exactly what been talking about last month and the month before. This fear that the coin-op operators have of telecommunication companies coming in and eating their lunch, because jukeboxes are still a huge business for these guys. And they've already lost a lot of terrain to piped-in music. So you have a speaker system and the owner of the restaurant or something just, has a standard playlist on CD or tape that they just pop in and it plays. And so you don't need a jukebox for people to get music in the restaurant or the bar.
Yeah.
And this thing would once again steal away the coin drop, because the operator would not have to be the one coming in. This independent operator can't set up the servers. They might just be now the maintenance guy, but they wouldn't be the one controlling it. They wouldn't be buying the records to put in the machines and so on and so forth. This really is a threat to the jukebox business.
Interesting, because karaoke, was that a thing in the US? Probably not.
Karaoke, they've been trying to bring it in. There's occasional articles in the trade magazines about karaoke machines, but it's not really catching on. Also, remember, this is right before the big anime wave in the States. Pokemon is still, 9 years away. So we still have this era when Japanese culture is not as present in the U.S. Karaoke will take off in some big cities.
And how does that work with payments? So when I was in Japan and played karaoke, that was just you paid one amount and went into a room, and that was your room for the night, and you can play karaoke or sing your heart out, and even the drinks were free, if I remember correctly. So you paid just one fixed fee and drink and sing all night long. And how did that work in the US?
Well, in the US, my experiences with karaoke were exclusively, because I never went to any dedicated karaoke place, but it was usually, they would bring in somebody would bring in the equipment. It would be like a special event night at a bar or a restaurant. They'd set up all the equipment in a stage, and then people would just go up to the karaoke DJ. He'd have 3 or 4 copies of the catalog. You'd look through the catalog and write down some songs on a piece of paper, hand them to them, and then they'd be like, okay, now inviting Carl up to the stage to sing American Pie or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's a similar in Europe. I did that once in the Netherlands, so and it is extremely similar. But but you pay just for the drinks. It's just like an entertainment.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not paying for it on an individual basis. But it's not about karaoke here. This is about the idea, these are just MIDI versions or mod file versions of the songs. But it's the potential of the technology. Because remember, coin-op people, they've been living with cutting-edge entertainment tech since the late 70s. These were the first ones to have computer games before, you really had anything in the home. They're doing this stuff. They're constantly seeing how the technology is getting better, better, better. They're already sort of predicting the moment this actually takes off, we're out.
Oh, interesting.
And they're not just seeing it for music, they're seeing it for other things, as our next story tells us.
Yeah. FCC grants telecom rights to transmit TV signals.
The U.S. Federal Communications Commission has granted the regional telephone companies, aka the Baby Bells, the right to transmit TV signals over the telephone wires. This will undoubtedly lead to a massive proliferation of fiber optic networks and may accelerate the move by cable companies to offer additional services like music and video games over the wires.
So this is another story like before, I guess.
This is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, just to give some legal background, especially for people who do not remember the whole breaking up of the Baby Bells and the aftermath of that. So in the United States, we never had a nationally owned, so a governmentally owned telecommunications company. And so if you're from Europe, for example, virtually every country in Europe had a national telecommunications company or telephone company.
Yep.
In the United States, it was a private company, AT&T. Now, the legal issue with that is that if you're going to start building a telephone network, you're building those telephone wires on private property. Okay? Now, if you're part of the government, you have a thing called eminent domain, which means the government, if they say a big public interest in something, can just say, you know what, I'm taking some of your stuff.
Okay.
Like if they need to build a road, you can't say, well, you're not building it on my land and that's it. They can force you to sell their land to build the road because it's for the greater good.
Okay,
yeah. And so this is why in Europe, when they put up telephone wires originally, there was no question of, are you allowed to, just come on my land and put up a pole and have the wire go across the neighborhood. In the United States, they had to come up with a workaround here because suddenly you needed to give a private company the right to put up these wires. And it goes before telephone already with the telegraph wires. And so they basically gave these companies a monopoly, if you will, a blank check to just install these wires. And then in the 70s, when the cable companies started showing up, they got the same privilege.
Wow.
Okay. And this is why you suddenly had monopolies. There was only one telephone company because only one company had the right to put up those wires.
And also probably if there would be a different telephone company, they also have to make their own wires.
Well, they would have to put up their own wires, and then they'd have to get the permissions again. It becomes this huge thing. So the barrier to entry of competitors was very, very high. And in the 1970s, they started may have already started in the 60s, but I think it was 70s. There was this long, long lawsuit, and it ended up with the breaking up of AT&T. So the monopoly got broken up into small regional companies. So AT&T was originally known as the Bell Telephone Company. And so these new regional monopolies were called the Baby Bells, and they were limited to only offering regional or local telephone services.
Okay.
they couldn't offer long distance phone calls. So now you didn't have a contract with just one telephone company. You had to have a contract with both the regional and the long distance phone company, which AT&T remained the long distance phone company. Then you had other companies come in like MCI, I think was the name of one of them. A whole bunch of these companies show up offering long distance phone calls. And then what they're doing is signing contracts with the baby bells to basically lease access to the lines. It becomes this very complicated system.
Wow, it's really convoluted.
Very, very convoluted.
And also, when you're a customer
and
you want to make a call outside of your region or state, or what is it? Something
yeah. Well, it depends. Yeah.
You have to sign up with AT&T, or else you can't make that call.
Well, not quite. I don't know exactly how it was dealt with in the early years, but you could. I think you were automatically still with AT&T, but then you could switch to another carrier, if memory serves me right. Granted, I was a kid when most of these early decisions happened, but okay. So that's I'm glossing over a lot of details, I know, but the big debate was then, okay, what else can we do with the wires? Because the original permission was for telecommunications.
Yeah.
And so now so for telephone, and then you've got the fax machines. And this is going to be a question when we get to internet.
Internet is data over those wires.
Yeah. Exactly. But these are all these things where those original permissions need to be expanded by law.
Okay, and now they want. Now they have music and video games.
Now they're going to be and first they're only going to be allowed to do television.
Okay.
And now we're still talking analog television signals. We're not talking digital television yet. That's not a thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
But they're opening it up to TV signals. Now, what this means is that it's just a hop skip from there to everything else, because as we're going to see, these if you're going to transmit television signals, that's just a video screen input. Maybe you can do a video game like this. Yeah. It's what we do nowadays with all
Stadia.
These services. What?
With Stadia or something.
Exactly. So services where the game is being processed on the server and all you get back is the video image.
Mm-hmm.
These are potential services, which of course would then leave the coin-op operator with his standalone cabinet looking silly.
Yeah, because you could probably do that at home as well.
Exactly. And I mean, you see it in bars in the United States for the last 20 years where they'll have trivia nights, and the trivia night is not being handled by an on-site machine. Everybody gets, a little machine on their table where they choose A, B, or C or whatever. And what's coming over the TV screens are the trivia questions, but those are just being broadcast. And there's another story a little bit later in the show today where that basic idea is already being adapted for the home. So right now, the internet isn't an issue yet, but everybody sees the telecommunications revolution coming. And so everybody is trying to figure out a way of understanding how it's going to impact them and how to change the business models to adapt to this technology, which unfortunately is still many, many years away.
Yeah, that's
from
what
being
I thought.
Viable.
Yeah.
But because the other technology, especially the computer technology, has moved so fast in such a short period of time. I mean, think about it. 10 years before this, arcade games were, stupid little looking sprites like the kangaroo game that Mads played in the last episode. Yeah. And now we're talking about Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's just 10 years. These guys are thinking, if this really takes off fast, how do we adjust? So the AMOA, the Operators Association in the United States, has been asking for games to include modems so they can stay up to date. They've been asking the manufacturers to start including modem options, and a few games are starting to show these options. And there's actually at one of the trade shows that's reported on this month in Replay magazine, they actually had a demo modified version of Sega's Time Traveler. And that was the weird hologram game that was basically just a quick time event, a Laserdisc thing. It was basically the technology of Dragon's Lair, but put into this hologram cabinet with real live actors.
Okay.
But instead of running the game off of internal hardware, it was actually streaming the video for the game over a modem.
That's interesting. I remember back in the day we had like the video games over TV. I think in Germany they had that game Hugo or something.
Yes.
There was like a TV show, but the people can call in and play the game with their remote, I think, or something.
Well, they were playing the game by saying left, right, left, right.
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah,
and then hoping that the guy with
terrible.
the actual joystick would control it. The Hugo thing, that's the whole story. We've talked about it on the show previously. That was franchised worldwide. That was all over the world. If you go onto YouTube, you can find Hugo in virtually every language on the planet.
But I imagine that the time traveler thing also has a certain amount of lag like that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, everything at this point is not quite there yet. Sorry, they weren't using a telephone wire modem, but they were doing it over cable. So cable television wires.
Yeah.
But still, the fact is that they don't know what the technology will be capable of, but they do know that it's potentially going to kill off part of their business. And that's what the operators are worried about at this point.
Yeah, but they still have a lot of time.
Well, but they don't know that.
No, sure.
That's the brilliant part. We know it now 30 years later, but at this point, you can really sense it in the letters pages and in the editorials in these magazines. They really don't know, is this 10 years off or is this 6 months off? Is there a breakthrough coming? Because a lot of these guys, and there's an article in one of the magazines about why, I think it's the editorial of Replay or Playmeter, where they're actually telling the operators, okay, I know you guys are conservative. I know a lot of you are still doing your bookkeeping on paper. You should be buying computers. You should be doing all of this stuff. I understand that everything's working just fine on paper, but you need to familiarize yourself with the technology so when these innovations come, you're not completely out of the loop. And it's kind of weird that they have to say this in 1992, but there's a lot of people who are still not using a computerized spreadsheet for their bookkeeping.
Yeah, especially that kind of companies that just buy hardware and put it somewhere and just
exactly.
Yeah, so they're not really hands-on with software and stuff like that.
Exactly. And so even though they should be high tech, a lot of it is mystery box stuff for them, and this is why
they just buy the machines and put it somewhere.
Exactly, and that's why this is so scary to them because it really is just the
really
black
unknown. Yeah.
Okay, but we got to keep moving. Okay. There's another big innovation in the arcades.
Yeah, that's a cool one. X-City gets into the dating game.
X-City introduces the database. This is such a bad pun. A stand-up cabinet-based dating service. Players pay $5 to create a profile with a photo and then $1 to check back in to see if they have any matches. Messages can be sent back and forth with a minimum of $13 being spent before an actual date can be arranged. The device is powered by a Mac with an 80-megabyte hard drive.
So this was like a Tinder arcade machine.
Basically, yes. And it's not wired up to a central database. So it's literally just whoever goes to this individual machine.
Wow. So where are these machines placed?
Well, they're selling it as something that you might put in a singles bar.
Oh, yeah.
And so you put it in the corner of the singles bar and people can go over there. There's a camera. It takes a picture of your face. You write a profile and then you're paying by the minute to, surf through the other profiles that are on the hard drive. And this is where they're calculating the $13. So each of the two parties has to put in their profile. So that's $5 each.
Yeah.
Then you have first person sends a message saying, I like you, or you check back and say, ooh, somebody liked me. Then you send them a message. Then, the next person has to come in, put $1 in to say, oh, I like you too. And only at that point, once they both say we like each other, can the third message be, here's my number, call me.
Yeah, but it's actually quite a nice idea, but it seems really expensive.
It seems very expensive, but considering that they're putting a Macintosh computer, which is already a fairly expensive piece of hardware in this, they've got a digital camera in this. An 80 megabyte hard drive is pretty big for the time.
Yeah.
This is not a cheap piece of equipment. Plus, they've got to resell it. Remember, it's not Exidy creating bespoke hardware. They're buying this stuff, and they're not buying probably enough of them to really get that great of a rebate. So there's money flowing into this project, and when you put this on location, it's going to be thousands and thousands of dollars for the machine. So obviously you're going to have to make it worth the while.
Yeah, but also for the players, the daters.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, it's turning it sort of into a game, but at the same time not. But in an age before the internet, before you have this kind of dating thing, there were still personal ads running in newspapers, obviously without photos, and these computer-based dating services where you would go to this storefront and people, they'd take a picture of you or a video, and then you could pay money to look at other people's videos to try to meet people. Those were very, very common. In fact, did you ever see the movie Sneakers?
No.
Phenomenal film. Don't know how well the tech in it has aged. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's got Sidney Poitier and Robert Redford and Dan Aykroyd. Just a huge slew. Ben Kingsley is in it. Great movie about this security company that's looking for flaws in bank security systems. And it becomes a spy thriller. It's a really funny movie, very lighthearted, well done flick. But one of the
from what year it is?
I'm gonna have to guess based off of when I saw it. It's no.
I have it in front of me. It's 1992.
1992. Perfect. Exactly. I knew it was 92 or 93, and it had to be around this time. Really great movie. I highly recommend it. It's funny. It's got a good tension in the when the mystery starts boiling up, and the cast is just amazing. Dan Aykroyd plays basically himself, this guy who believes in conspiracy theories and weird shit. It's an absolutely great movie.
Okay. Well, so we have some homework again.
There you go. But this movie has as a major plot point this idea of computer-based dating services. Where there's this whole plot point about, a computer matched these two people up based on their likes and dislikes and stuff. So highly recommend it. Go and check it out. But yeah, so this is a real thing at the time, and the ability to turn it into a on-location system is actually also pretty cool because you're now not accessing people who might be 100 miles away. You're accessing people who are frequenting the same bar.
Yeah, it's actually still a good idea, I think. But you have apps for that, I think.
Exactly. Nowadays with geolocation on your app, I met my wife through a dating app. So it's one of those things where, I didn't have to, go to a bar that she frequented. The app told us we were within the certain vicinity. So yeah, it's one of those things where technology nowadays has made it basically obsolete because we all have a supercomputer in our pockets. But for the time, it is a really innovative, cool idea that probably made zero cash.
Probably because it's so expensive.
Exactly. But it was just too cool to leave out. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. We've got some big summer consumer electronics show news.
The CES opens to the public.
The Summer Consumer Electronics Show experimented with opening to the public. According to Computer Gaming World, consumers may have gotten a bit too much insight into how the sausage is made. Demos showing off fancy cinematics as opposed to detailed gameplay, only partially finished prototypes with makeshift assets, hype centered around potential sales as opposed to features. All these typical attributes of a trade show were laid bare for the end user to see, and without the requisite knowledge of what still remained to be done to bring the products to market, they could stare at in befuddlement.
Wow, yeah, I can imagine that at that time it wasn't common to see like a game in beta or alpha version, and you're probably really shocked when you look at that.
Definitely, and this is one of the things, I mean, Computer Gaming World always has a very snarky PC Master Race feel about them, looking down at the plebes, but they do make a very valid point here that a consumer show should never be the same as a trade show. The trade show is there for the deals. They also talk about how, especially on Sunday, the last day of the show, a lot of the tradespeople just don't show up. A lot of the deal making that should be going on is not happening. And how a lot of stuff that normally may have been shown on the floor, because it would have only been trade people seeing it, gets moved to private hotel rooms.
Yeah, behind closed doors, yeah.
But the problem with that is, especially in the PC realm where there's a lot of indie developers, they can't afford to do that. You know,
and also, I can imagine you have a stall and people walk by and just talk and look at your game or whatever you show, and you can just bring in new people into your game. But if you, as an unknown company, have to invite everyone into a separate room, maybe those people aren't even interested to talk with you because you're a nobody. So
exactly.
And isn't the E3, for example, is also a really big show, and it was always like a non-consumer show. But I think the last years of E3 were open for public, and now it's sort of gone. I think E3 isn't no more. I think
E3 is still happening. Obviously, the pandemic put a kibosh, but a lot of the big publishers don't bother showing up. And E3 was never exclusively a trade show. It was also a show that was open to the public.
Oh, really?
So it was originally designed that way.
I thought it was always you couldn't get tickets for it. I think maybe. I think so. I think it's not open for public. Only like the last 2-3 years or something. And then
I'd have to check. I may be wrong on that. I'm trying to remember if I may be wrong on that. That originally it was also just a trade show, but this experiment for the CES is the only time they're going to do it.
And CES now still a thing, right?
CES is still a thing, and I mean, you also have to remember there's a lot of stuff being shown at CES. This is another point that they make, that it's not just video games. That's a relatively small portion, actually. There's VCRs. The porn industry is highly represented at this point in time, selling VHS tapes of porn films and stuff. So it is for the tradesperson, and so this incongruity between all these different products, home appliances and whatever else, it just doesn't fit in, because the people buying home appliances were not coming to CES to see CES. It was mainly the gamers showing up from the general public, and most of the show just was not geared to them.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an experiment that is going to go wrong, and they don't do this again. So let's get on to more CES news.
Mario Paint bows at CES.
Nintendo has countered Sega's rise with the introduction of Mario Paint at CES. The art package comes with a mouse and will allow players to make pictures, compose tunes, and even do some basic animation work.
I was really in love with this game when it came out. I really, really wanted it for Christmas or something. I don't know why, but it was just really magical that it has a mouse and you can be creative with it. And but I never had it. I never got it. This game. So but maybe it's for the better. Because I can also see that you're like done with it in maybe an hour and then play something else again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there, but you really then you'd have to start getting into music composition and really trying to push yourself with the picture drawing and whatnot. There's a lot in that package, but yeah, it's going to appeal to certain people for a long term. Now,
it's still around. People are still making stuff with it.
Oh yeah, definitely, and it is a very versatile tool. And also, don't forget, it comes with the mouse, which you can then use on certain other games, which also wasn't necessarily a bad idea.
No, and it was really I think that thing was really a selling point for me. That it was like, oh, now I also have sort of a computer. I think maybe we already sold the Amiga. I don't know. I think so. I think we sold the Amiga and then got the Super Nintendo, but.
Oh wow! Talk about.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know anymore, but I don't think I had the device with a mouse, so it was really appealing as a kid for me.
Yeah, and I remember seeing it and being like, okay, a mouse, that's kind of cool. You could do a lot of things with that, but obviously a lot of the games that could have used it, like Populous, for example, came out way before, so you couldn't use the mouse with that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And also the resolution of the TV screens isn't the greatest for.
That's true too, and the resolution of the Super Nintendo wasn't the greatest. It was a fairly low resolution system, but hey, it better than a kick in the pants. Another big highlight of the show, and I just wanted to mention this briefly, was this is also when Super Mario Kart gets shown for the first time.
That was a big one.
A huge one.
Maybe I got that game instead.
You're probably better off in the long run. Right. But I loved how one of the German magazines was comparing it and describing it as basically a two-player F-Zero, which
is a sort of two-player slow F-Zero.
And that's the thing. It slows it down, but also adds all the other components, which obviously if you're just playing it for a minute or two at a convention, you're not going to get the full effect of the depth of the gameplay.
Yeah, and also the battle thing is in there, and probably you don't see that on a show like that either.
Exactly.
That's a big thing in Mario Kart, for me at least.
Yeah, and so this is going to be like, for me, when I think of Super Nintendo, that's the game my mind always races to immediately. That's like the defining game for the Super Nintendo, because it was the first time where it really felt like, okay, this is the experience you can't have on another system.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Pilot Wings was also very similar in its technological effect,
but multiplayer.
It didn't have the multiplayer. That was also the downside to F-Zero.
Yeah.
But
true.
The incorporation of the multiplayer was really the game changer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Light guns go XXL.
CES also saw the introduction of both the Nintendo Super Scope and Sega's Menacer. Both guns look more like shoulder-mounted rocket launchers than fast-action guns like their 8-bit forebearers.
I actually did own a Super Scope.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I always hear people bad-mouthing it, but I had a great time as a kid playing with it. I think it's the only light gun I had ever as a kid. So the novelty of shooting things on the screen was enough for me. Maybe if you had a NES like Duck Hunt, then maybe it's not that special, and also really clumsy. Yeah, the Zapper, and also it's pretty clumsy, the Super Scope. And I think it also needed really a lot of batteries because it was wireless. I don't know anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it needed batteries. It was clunky as hell. It was just a bad design, but they were desperately trying to avoid making it look like a gun.
Oh, that's why it looks so strange.
Yes. And the Menacer, it's a similar issue. They're trying to avoid making it look like a gun. And we will see this pop up again in a year or two when we have the congressional hearings in the U.S. about violence in video games, and Nintendo will try to throw Sega under the bus by talking about the Menacer. And there'll be this wonderful moment when the head of Sega then pulls out the Super Scope and says, "Well, this is what Nintendo is selling."
A bazooka.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, yeah, it's a bad scene. I believe, and I'm going to lean out on a little bit here. I know the Genesis does get handgun-shaped light guns for Lethal Enforcers.
Yeah, they look really like revolvers. Like
they look like revolvers, but they're pink and cyan.
Yeah.
But they do get those. I don't know if the Super Nintendo gets a version of that too. I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
Yeah.
And
But
also
by
the games
then-
weren't that great for the Super Scope. So
Yeah. Well, because, not enough people really jumped on board with the system. And I don't even remember if Terminator 2 arcade game supported it, which really would have been the killer app for
I
it.
think not, but
No, I don't think it did, and Revolution X didn't either, if memory serves me right.
well, you don't miss anything with that game. But
Yeah, as a big Aerosmith fan back in the day, I will admit that I popped way too many quarters into the arcade version of that for no reason other than I was like,
also spectacle, a lot of noise, a lot of Aerosmith noise.
There's a lot of noise, not nearly as much music as I would have liked. And just, it looked kind of cool when
It
you
also
played.
has the captured images as
digitized
graphics,
images.
digitized, yeah, like Mortal Kombat.
Well, that was the big thing. Now, granted, that game's 94, but Terminator 2, the arcade game's already been out for a little while at this point, which also used a lot of digitized imagery. So that wave of games using the digitized sprites is still with us. It's not going away anytime soon. But it is one of those things also where there's a limitation of what you can do, especially with the color depth of these systems. I mean, doing digitized sprites, for example, on a Genesis is going to have limitations when you can only do 64 colors on screen.
True, but actually, I think Mortal Kombat, for example, looks all right on those systems. But it's also not that many sprites on screen, so you can use most colors on those sprites, and then you'll be all right.
Exactly. Yeah, you can work around it, but you start to lose some of the digitized effect.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay, so we've got that fun news out of the way. What else?
Nintendo sticks to January 93 release date.
With the battle for CD console gaming heating up with the imminent U.S. launch of the now rechristened Sega CD at $299 and the Turbo Duo at the same price, both with bundled software, Nintendo wants to keep early adopters away from the competition by keeping the post-Christmas launch promise alive despite developers still having no dev hardware. Virgin Games announces that Nintendo will publish the CES darling and much anticipated multimedia extravaganza, The Seventh Guest game, for the new add-on. Nintendo has also announced that Super Mario World 2 would be the pack-in for the new hardware.
So what is this new hardware?
Now, this is where Ethan and I disagree slightly. I am still of the firm belief it is vaporware. So this is the Super NES CD add-on that they're supposedly creating with Philips. that is supposedly going to have extra chips added into it for extra cool processing. And that they keep upping every time that they release details about the hardware, they keep upping what it can do. Basically, and now they're promising it'll be out in January, right after Christmas.
Wow.
Even though the devs have no hardware yet to build on.
And it's supposed to be competing with the
Sega CD and the Turbo 2.
Yeah, and later on the PlayStation.
Well, the PlayStation is still way out there because Sony is still developing its Super NES hardware. Remember, Sony still has the rights apparently to make a Super NES compatible CD drive system, and that one does. We have the hardware. We know.
Yeah. That's actually, there are like 2 or 3 of those in the world, I think.
Exactly, but the Philips one, there's nothing other than a spec sheet and
a CDI.
Yeah, well, the CDI is
another device.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're promising January of '93.
Yeah,
that's very convenient. If you want to torpedo Christmas sales of the competition, January 93 is a wonderful strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it'll be out. Just don't buy the other guy's system. You know, stick with us because right after Christmas we'll give it to you. Oh crap! I'm sorry, I'm not buying it for a nanosecond. It is vaporware. They just don't want people jumping onto the Sega CD. Now, they are probably vastly over worried about the danger that the Sega CD poses, because it doesn't really pose that much of a threat, because it's very quickly going to become apparent that it's not worth the price. Right. That the extra add-ons that it does is hardly an improvement over what the Super NES can already do with Mode 7.
Yeah,
and it
basically adds Mode 7 to Sega Genesis, right?
Yeah, slightly better than Mode 7. It can do a little bit better if you play, I think it's called Battle Core. It's this mech game on there. It is graphically very impressive. Gameplay-wise, kind of weak. It's a core design game. They also ported their Amiga helicopter game Thunderhawk over using that method. But still, it's not a patch on Mode 7. And when they do Wing Commander on the Sega CD, and then you compare it with Wing Commander on the Super NES, other than the speech, there's really no improvement. Other than now you have to wait for everything to load.
Yeah, that's really annoying.
Yeah,
it was like a one speed CD-ROM drive.
Single speed CD-ROM drive.
Yeah.
So they're kind of worried about it, but still at the same time, in hindsight, there was really no need to worry about it. But this is clearly a move. I can't explain it any other way other than we want to torpedo the CD sales over the Christmas period.
And Super Mario World 2, was that already announced? Like, that's Yoshi's Island?
No, and that's something that I saw in a German magazine reported on this.
Okay.
That Super Mario World 2 was being promised as the launch title or pack-in title, for the CD add-on.
Sounds like a made-up rumor or something.
This is the thing. Nintendo, is being very cagey. They're letting rumors fly. They don't have anything. If there had been actual legitimate work being done on Nintendo CD titles, because those would have been necessary for this thing to launch,
they would have been leaked already.
We would have found something. The Giga Leak would have something in it.
Yeah.
The Giga Leak would have something in there about CD titles in development.
Yeah,
and we have Bupkis. as far as I could tell. If there's something out there, if any listeners know if the Giga Leak had anything about CD titles in development, please let me know. If Nintendo had put in resources to develop CD software, then I'd say it's not vaporware. As long as Nintendo didn't put in any money into developing games, it's vaporware, because there's one thing Nintendo was good at. They were going to launch the hardware with some great titles.
True.
GameCube accepted. Luigi's Mansion, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I don't like that game.
But
I tried it. I don't like it. So
it didn't do much for me either. But the deal is they would have had games in development for this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure. Especially if it's just so short the way.
Exactly. I mean, the Giga League gave us prototype Super Mario World sprites.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The weird-looking Yoshi sprites.
Exactly. Something has to be in there on CD titles. Without that being found, this is vaporware, pure and simple, and it's just them trying to torpedo the competition now that they can't force third parties to only develop for the Super Nintendo. And it's basically just sleazy tactics. That's what Nintendo does. That's what Nintendo did. And now they're no longer in the market position to pull those tricks. But it's just what it is. Okay. Moving on from that.
Sega Multimedia Studio opens.
With the Sega CD requiring greater multimedia content, Sega has opened their Sega Multimedia Studio in Redwood City, California. The new studio, headed by industry veteran Ken Baltasar, would work on over 24 titles, mainly contributing audio and video assets, as well as the Sega CD games Jurassic Park and Wild Woody.
Yeah, you definitely need something like that. Just like Nintendo should need something like that to make something for CD-based systems.
Exactly. Now, granted, they're doing this a little late because the system's been out for a long time already in Japan, and they are about to launch it, and they're just now opening this studio up. It's not the greatest preparation in the world. But the multimedia studio is going to be an important part of the learning curve for Sega to, what needs to go in to make the CD format really, really viable.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't work really great for them.
Again, the technology was too early, but it did teach them how to make games for CD, which is going to help them a little bit with the Sega Saturn lineup. But again, too little, too late. Hardware's a mess. That the Sega Saturn's a mess that we'll deal with in a couple of years when it comes out.
Okay. And last story about this. Price war comes to handhelds.
With both Genesis and Super NES base systems down to just $99 and TurboGrafx 16 down to $69, the handheld race to the bottom is on too. Game Gear has been dropped to $99 as well as the Lynx, which is down to $69.
This sounds incredibly cheap, but it probably wasn't.
This is incredibly cheap because I believe the Game Boy is at $89 at this point.
Oh, so the Lynx is cheaper than Game Boy. That's surprising.
That is surprising, but it's not going to help the Lynx, or not significantly. The Lynx is just too far behind. The game library isn't there. All the big properties have shown up already on the Game Boy. Remember, the Game Boy has already been out for 3 years at this point.
Yeah, and it's also ancient hardware compared to the Lynx.
Well, it's ancient hardware compared to Lynx, except that the Lynx resolution sucks. The Lynx resolution sucks.
Is it lower than Game Boy?
I believe on a dot-by-dot basis, yes.
Wow.
Let's see. Wait. Let me just confirm this before I put my foot in my mouth. Game Boy resolution was 160 by 144 pixels, and the Lynx resolution was 160 by 102.
Wow. So yeah, that's pretty. It's a lot of difference. Yeah, especially on such a low amount of pixels. You really want all the pixels.
You need as many pixels as you can get. So we are dealing with a loss of 42 pixels on one side.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, you have to remember that the Lynx, while it has color, it just is a murky looking screen, that original Lynx screen.
Yeah, and as well for the Game Gear, the fluorescent light bar in the back didn't help a lot.
Yeah, it's trying to do too much too early. And it doesn't have the games. I mean, we've already got games like Gargoyle's Quest, Ultima. It gets, the Game Boy versions. We've got, I believe the first Final Fantasy game for the Game Boy has come out. So you've got the big epic RPGs. You've got the pack-in Tetris, which is just, it's Tetris.
Oh.
And the Game Boy is simply unstoppable. And the Game Gear is, the Sega Master System catalog plus, and it looks nice and everything else, but it's the games are not necessarily trimmed down and made specifically for handheld play.
No, it has. Yeah, I sort of collect all for Game Gear as well, and yeah, the games are not really deep as well. Like Game Boy has really deep games with saving and progression and stuff actually changing in the game. But the Game Gear is a lot of like short arcade experiences and stuff like that. So, and I think there's like maybe 2 games with a save battery for a Game Gear. So.
This is why by the time the Game Gear starts getting some more advanced games like the Virtual Fighter RPG that comes out for it, it's just too little too late. I mean, they needed a stronger launch library of titles right from the get-go, and they didn't have it. So the lower price is going to move some units. It's going to increase the install base, but it's not nearly enough to tackle the Game Boy.
Yeah, and also it's almost not an handheld anymore. So
exactly, the battery life on both of those systems is going to kill you.
Yeah.
And speaking of increasing sales,
Street Fighter 2 sells out in 60 minutes.
The Japanese launch of Street Fighter II for the SNES was a massive success. The lines of players that wrapped around blocks at the biggest stores led to sellouts within just an hour. Smaller shops didn't even bother with walk-in sales, having pre-sold their entire stock.
Yeah, it was a really big thing.
Oh, huge.
Everyone had if you have a Super Nintendo, you had to have that game.
This is the one that's going to cement the Super NES more than anything else. It's going to give it a lead that nobody else can really muster. Plus, the controller array has 6 buttons. There's no compromises necessary. Unlike if you're playing the Genesis version of Champion Edition a year later, you're going to be running into the problem that unless you buy a new 6-button controller, you're going to have to hit the start button to switch between kicks and punches, which is just absolutely insane.
I wonder if there's still people playing it like that.
Oh, I'm sure there's people who got really, really good at it. One of the reviews I remember of the game back in the day, I believe in Video Games and Computer Entertainment magazine, talked about how you kind of get used to it after a while. And I'm just like, don't try to sugarcoat this. There's no reason to sugarcoat this. Granted, you're talking to somebody who mastered somewhat Street Fighter 2 on the Amiga with a 1-button joystick. Okay?
Yeah, that's a terrible game.
I played through, I beat the game with all 8 characters with a 1-button joystick, and it was a pain in the freaking ass to play. and it was slow as molasses. And there's so many things to say about the game, but I
send you
still
a
love.
certificate in the end of it?
Well, you actually get the end sequences. The same end sequences from the arcade game are in the Amiga version. It's a proper port, just like the port of Mortal Kombat has all the little intro animations from the arcade game. They're digitized little cutscenes. It's less frames of animation, but they're all still in the game. It's impressive.
Amiga's impressive hardware.
Well, the hardware's impressive, but just the fact that they put in the effort was impressive. But yeah, it's not going to change the fact that you need 6 buttons to play Street Fighter, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But okay.
Continue with computer news.
Let's get into it.
Trade in your A500 for a CD TV.
Well, actually, it's credit towards a CD TV. Commodore is offering a £200, this is in the UK, trade-in to UK Amiga 500 owners who want to upgrade to the new CD TV Media Pack, which includes a keyboard, mouse, and disk drive. Plus, you get a fresh 12-month warranty, which may not be worth much as the company Commodore subcontracted their service work to National Repair Center just closed its doors while still holding on to some people's hardware.
Okay, wow. I think you were better off with the A500.
Yes.
So you got money, and then you have to buy a CD TV, which probably more than £200.
Yeah, the CD TV was going to cost you an extra $300 on top.
Oh wow! So and it only gave you a CD drive.
That's the only benefit. I think it also had a TV out built in.
Oh yeah,
so the normal Amiga 500 still needed the TV adapter if you were going to plug it into a TV. Didn't need it if you were plugging it into a monitor, and so that was already built into the CD TV.
Okay, but the A500 didn't have a CD.
Didn't have a CD drive.
No, but it doesn't have an external CD drive thingy for it, or?
Well, that's one of those things where that has been released, but in extremely limited quantities, and getting it is a pain in the ass, and it costs like $500.
Oh, okay, so you're still cheaper with the CD TV, but
yeah, the only downside to this, and this is the big downside that they're not mentioning, as far as I know, the CD TV you can only plug in one external floppy drive.
Oh, okay.
Let me make sure I'm correct on that, because I don't think you could daisy chain Amiga floppies.
And also, it doesn't have a floppy drive itself.
Okay.
Does the CD TV have a floppy drive as well?
Not a built-in one.
No,
it was an external one.
So you have all your software on floppies, then you trade in your A500 to a CD TV, and then you suddenly can't use your software anymore.
No. Well, see, this is what this media drive did come with. It came with an external floppy drive.
Oh wow!
That you could plug into it.
To play
now,
out,
the downside to this is that most big Amiga games at this point kind of require you to have 2 floppy drives for decent play. So the games would have the floppy drive plugged in. One disc would basically have like the game engine on it, and another disc would have level data.
Oh, so you should only swap out that other disc if you progress the game.
Exactly. And yeah, the typical Amiga drives could not be daisy chained. So what you were really doing with this, while you gained the CD drive, you were losing the second floppy drive with this new setup.
Oh.
And so this was, there were dual floppy drives that you could buy, but that loss of the second floppy drive, that would have been a killer. Especially if you were playing point-and-click adventure games, because without a second drive, they were useless.
I can't remember having a second floppy drive on my A500, but yeah, it's long ago.
Yeah, and then you were just doing a whole hell of a lot of disk swap.
Yeah, I think I did that. Just a lot of waiting, but you still have a lot of attention span when you're a kid. You just want to play the game and just sit around and watching the magic happen on the screen of loading all those games in. So
yeah, and I mean, I suffered through it as well, but yeah, without the second floppy drive, I would have gone crazy. Because, I mean, just a game like Monkey Island, for example, 11 discs, but one of them was like the main software disk, the main program disk. You just left that in the system. Sierra started doing the same thing with their games. So they're
really smart solution, actually.
It is. I mean, keep the game engine on one disc, and then as you're moving through the rooms, you keep shuffling the second disc, and only the second disc.
And then load in the assets.
Exactly. But if you had to do it on a single floppy drive with the limited memory, I mean, even if you're dealing with a 1 meg machine, as you're filling up that meg and it's trying to decompress data and everything else, it was a freaking nightmare.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can only remember I had a lot of fun with Amiga. So
for our listeners,
I don't remember anymore.
For our listeners, if you really want the full experience of single drive nightmarishness that could be the Amiga, go back and check out our 7 Minutes in Heaven where Mads played Champion of the Raj. And he was playing it on original hardware, but he only had one emulated disk drive. And all I have to say is the constant switching back and forth on a poorly designed disk allocation of data is nightmarish on that system. Now, if they did it right, really not that big of a problem, but a lot of developers did not know how to do it right. And so, okay, enough of that suffering. Let's go on to other topics.
Sound card clones abound.
With the advent of the true gaming PC, a slew of AdLib and Soundblaster compatible cards is hitting the market. This month's computer gaming world is filled with ads for cards like the Sound Commander or Sound Galaxy NX, which claim to be fully compatible with all the existing sound cards out there.
At the time, all those different sound cards was really a nightmare. I can remember there was like a lot of choices when you play a game on a PC that you can choose all those sound cards, and I thought, what the heck is all these? And now I learned a little bit the difference, but still it was really convoluted to choose something, I think.
Oh, well, this was the thing. It was everybody was trying to be compatible, and a lot of them were flawlessly compatible or very close to it, because they weren't, AdLib and Soundblaster weren't necessarily using custom hardware. They were just using these Yamaha sound chips that anybody could pretty much buy. Now, sound quality would also depend on a lot of the other components, the outputs and stuff like this. So some of these cheaper cards would not sound as good. And Sound Blaster has already announced that they're going to be doing a 16-bit version of the card, the Sound Blaster 16, that's coming down the pipeline. But for a lot of people on a budget trying to upgrade their machines, these new cards are a very, very big deal.
Yeah, because you only hear the difference when you have two systems to compare it. And if you have just one of those cards, it's good enough.
Exactly, especially when you're upgrading from the PC speaker.
Yeah, that's
let's face
big upgrade.
That was pretty terrible. No matter how much they tried to squeeze out of it, and they squeezed some really good stuff out of the PC speaker, it needed to go. So this was an interesting little development. These ads have been piling up for a while in the magazines. It's just this month, it just struck me how many there were. And I was like, okay, we've got to talk about this.
So someone unlocked the ability to clone Sound Blasters. And,
exactly.
And suddenly everyone was onto it. Which is a great idea. Let's continue on with the next one. HP launches Color Inkjet.
According to HP, their new color printer using their proprietary inkjet technology will be the first to handle 300 DPI resolutions, and all of that at under $5,000. It's a steal.
Wow. That's probably not even great pictures coming out of there.
I mean, it's inkjet quality. I'm sure that it's not as good as it would get later on, but it's still, I mean, 300 DPI in color. This was
that's okay.
Unheard of.
But you don't have a digital camera at the time, so what are you printing?
You're printing all sorts of stuff. I mean, remember labels for discs and stuff,
True,
or product mock-ups. Think about it from a marketing standpoint. You want to do a product mock-up of what a game box is going to look like, and you're going to try to put this giant piece of painted artwork on the cover of this little box. You could try to photocopy it and reduce it. You can scan it and put it into Deluxe Paint, but you didn't really have a way of producing a color miniaturized version of it yet. And now you can just prototype it in the office.
Yeah. Imagine what the ink cartridges will cost you.
Well, the ink cartridges and everything will cost you, but when you're in a marketing scenario and you're about to launch a product that is going to have $1 million just for the ad budget, you don't really care about ink cartridges.
So it's mostly used for rapid prototyping.
Well, that's where this big industrial use is coming. I mean, there's nobody at home who's going to spend $5,000 for this inkjet printer. I mean, this is just the early version of the tech. But think about this 10 years later. How many of us, may have printed out really cool collages of game covers that we put on our pirated CDs at home and stuff? This is the dawn of a technology that may not be necessary for gaming, but it's so ancillary to gaming culture. This ability to print out color images of stuff is still with us today. I mean, this is still the standard for color printing for most people at home today.
Yeah, true.
So I thought it was worth, mentioning as a milestone in computer tech.
Okay, let's continue on with TV. TV gets interactive.
Interactive Network Incorporated, a California startup partially owned by TV network NBC, newspaper holding company Gannett, and TV ratings company Nielsen, is expanding its interactive TV service from its first test market in LA to San Francisco. The service allows users to record predictions about answers to game show questions or live sporting events and win prizes. The system sends questions and surveys to the handheld input device by FM radio signal, records the answers, and then transmits the results at the end of the event by modem back to the IN servers. Sega has announced that they will be partnering with IN to add a Genesis-compatible version of the controller, although the exact nature of the interactions this would facilitate is as of yet unknown.
So this is probably another laggy gaming thingy.
Well, it's not laggy. So what it is, let's say you're watching a game show on television, and if the game show is supported by the service, you have, and the controller, I got some links to this in the show notes so you guys can see what this thing looks like. But it's this little black handheld, kind of looks almost like a Game Gear, has a little antenna on the back, like a radio antenna, and a black and white dot matrix screen, similar to a Game Boy.
Okay.
So you're watching the show, you've got a set-top box connected to your television set that has a modem in it that is connected to your telephone wires. Now, your handheld device is getting a synchronized FM radio signal, which is transmitting questions or things that you can basically bet on about the show that you're watching. So let's say you're watching Wheel of Fortune, the game show.
Yeah.
And just when, the person's spinning the wheel, you can, you'll get A, B, or C options where it says, what do you should they buy a vowel, or will the person request the letters A, E, or I, or whatever, and you can then put in your inputs before it happens on the TV set.
Oh yeah, so you don't have to be really responsive.
Yeah, so you're just basically doing coordinated things with it, and at the end your device has stored all your answers and the timings of the answers, and then sends those through a radio signal to your set-top box, which then uses the modem to send a signal back to the server.
Ah, so it only communicates once.
It only communicates once and then dumps it on the server, and then compares your results versus all the other users' results. And if you had the best results, you win a prize. And they were talking about, you could win the biggest prizes were like trips and stuff like this. And you pay a flat fee every month for this thing, and like $200 for the device. And the idea is, if you're watching a live sporting event, you can be like, how will this next play go? The football stopped. Are they going to, make a first down or not make a first down? And you're basically essentially betting on this.
This sounds really nice, actually. Yeah, I would.
It's an interesting way of making the interactivity.
Yeah, but it also makes the show way more compelling.
It makes it more compelling. You've got a stake in the game. Now, some of this stuff is going to become problematic because you could cheat because of the time zones. So right now they're just in one time zone, but the Wheel of Fortune show is shown in a completely different earlier on the East Coast.
Well, yeah, okay, but that can be, you can make a solution for that.
How?
Like, just do separate servers?
Well, you can do separate servers, but that's not going to prevent me from calling a friend in the other city and finding out what happens in the show, and then knowing what the answers are ahead of time.
Yeah. That's true.
So this is where you're going to run into a problem. With the live sporting events, not an issue because it's happening all at the same time. But what you're seeing here is similar to what we talked about with CoinOp earlier. The broadcast channels, the traditional and traditional media, that's why the newspaper company is so interesting here. They know the telecommunication revolution is coming. They know that their old way of selling their content is going to change. Everybody knows the internet in some form is coming, and they don't know what form it's going to take. They don't know what it's going to be like, and they're all trying to lay claims. They're trying to stake out a future here.
Yeah, and that Genesis compatible version, what?
That never materializes. It never happens. And this is the thing, that the magazines are even like, what would that even mean?
Yeah.
Are you going to be watching somebody else's game? There's no, it's Sega signing up saying, well, maybe we'll figure something out. We don't want to be left behind.
Just FOMO.
Yeah. And I followed up on this Interactive Network Inc. company. They're around for a little bit longer, and the next year they're going to expand to Chicago, where exactly this time difference problem is going to be an issue. I don't know how they ever solved that, or if they did.
Yeah, just maybe only live events.
Yeah, the problem is that they're going to keep losing money. NBC is going to start putting this little symbol at the top of shows that have interactive capabilities, so people will see it and start wondering, there's going to be interactive things during the news broadcast where, people can give their opinions on the news, or, do I think this guy lied or whatever.
But this device never went into people's home outside of the test market, I think.
As far as I can tell, it never makes it past the test markets.
That's unfortunate.
Well, yeah, but remember the infrastructure that's necessary, because you also have to have the FM thing, and you also have to remember how the American television system is set up. So in the United States, because of the size of the country and the history of regulation of broadcast. Again, no government-sponsored television stations originally and radio stations. It's not like the BBC, where it's a government project. These are all private companies getting permission from the government for very limited uses.
Yeah.
The national networks, the American landscape as it was back in the day, was that the local stations would be owned locally, and they would then buy a package of maybe 8 or 9 hours of programming a day from the networks, and the rest of the day would be locally sourced programming. So either local productions, or they'd buy reruns of old national shows or syndicated shows and so forth. So you never could tell 100% where certain programs were going to land in the package. And because you have 4 different time zones in the continental United States, you also now had time shifting of the shows. Yeah. So if the same show, one show would be on at 8 o'clock in New York and maybe Chicago, I don't even know what Central Time is, and then you'd shift it 2 more times. So on the West Coast, they're getting it 4 hours later, for example.
Yeah, that will be a problem. Yeah,
well, and
especially if there's prizes.
There's famous examples like Saturday Night Live, which is a sketch comedy show that's shown live in New York, but on the West Coast, it's not live anymore. So, for example, they would often they'd film an entire test run of the show, and if something really bad happened, they would just splice in the test footage for the broadcast on the West Coast.
Oh, so they get a completely different show.
Well, not completely different, but still the same material.
An edited show.
Yeah, so like when Sinead O'Connor came on the show, in the test version, she was...
Oh, yeah, the Pope story.
Yeah, the Pope story, where in the test version, she rips up a picture of I can't remember who as a protest thing, but then in the live show, she pulls out a picture of the Pope and rips it up. The West Coast never saw the Pope picture being ripped up. So this is the kind of thing that can happen, which would then become a problem. But you also then have to get an FM radio station. So if your local television station doesn't also own a radio station, now you're going to have to get an FM station to broadcast, and you're going to have to get the permission. This is not sustainable. And there's a New York Times. Yeah, there's a New York Times article from November of '93, which I also linked in the show notes, where they talk about this company and the expansion into Chicago, but they also talk about a competing version of this where the interaction is more direct. So it's using satellite feeds and trying to broadcast directly into people's homes, and then the data not being stored, and where it's a more direct feed, similar to an internet connection as we would know it today. And this is the other type of interactive television that's being promoted, but also that will not catch on. So because it's just too complicated.
It could have worked in Europe, maybe. Would be easier.
It could have worked in Europe, except for the fact that the Europeans had no monthly payment satellite television.
No. Just cable television.
No. Well, satellite television in Europe, if you buy a satellite dish and you put it on your window, you get TV and you don't pay anything more.
Okay, we always had cable. I think in the Netherlands is probably really only cable, and it was really rare to have a satellite dish.
Well, I think it's also in cities like Amsterdam and stuff. They have all these restrictions about what you can put on the side of a house, which also probably put the kibosh on that.
Yeah.
But in Germany, for example, and this was one of the big things I was astonished by when I started working in the movie business over here. Yeah, when I started working in Germany, I was surprised by how little we could make off of movie rights with cable companies, because if you have a satellite channel, people could just get it unless you were doing premium programming that you were actually encoding. basic channels, what in the United States would be considered basic cable, over satellite was free. You didn't pay anything for it. It was just included if you bought the dish. In the United States, all of the satellite communications are encoded. So just putting up a dish does nothing. Now you have to have the decoder device that you pay a monthly rental fee for.
Okay, yeah. So I think I feel we had a similar thing in the Netherlands. Also a decoder.
Yeah. Well, cable in Germany was also monthly payment. The problem, but this is also why cable television had such a poor distribution in the country, because satellite was so much cheaper, and this also prevented internet from spreading as quickly because you didn't have a competing technology to the telephone system. Whereas the moment cable started to really get spread out to get installed, suddenly there was real price competition because, why go with the telephone company if cable can provide a really good high-speed internet solution?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the United States, this very compartmentalized little bits of systems is going to make this interactive television thing really difficult to spread out in a big way, and you need the versatility of the internet to really make it function.
Yeah.
But, oh well. Speaking of things functioning.
University of Chicago uses SimCity to test AI.
The University of Chicago will be giving copies of SimCity to its students to test AI models against results achieved by human players. The open-ended nature of the game made it a better candidate than games with more restrictive victory conditions.
So they made a new AI for SimCity?
No, they made an AI that could play SimCity.
Oh.
And they wanted to see how the AI would react to the results of their decisions and how it would try to improve on future goes with the game.
So machine learning.
Basically, yes. And I mean, now granted, my understanding of a lot of these topics is superficial at best. I did find a scientific paper based off of this research work. It's not very long. It's 17 pages, and it's linked in the show notes. So anybody who is interested in this, it's a very interesting application of gaming software to this kind of research, and I think it is worth looking into. They use not only SimCity, but there's another game, I think, where you're managing a restaurant or something that I'd never heard of before, and both of those are being discussed in this scientific paper.
These games are also really, I think you can really, it really works with if this then that situation. So you can really easily program all kind of different scenarios and see what happens. I think like if you do this in a first person game, there are so many vectors to program. It's way more difficult, I think.
Well, with SimCity, the big question is, decisions that made sense at the beginning of the game may suddenly not make any sense in later portions of the game. Because let's say you started off by saying, well, it's really, really efficient and helpful and keeps down pollution if I put the houses where the workers live right next to the factory where they work.
Yeah, but in the end, you get pollution problems.
Well, the moment you make the factory bigger, you need more workers. Now you have you ultimately have to move them further away. And if you put them in individual little houses as opposed to apartments, now suddenly the traffic jam starts, and all these other things. And now the bigger the traffic jam, the more pollution from the cars, the quality of life in the houses goes down. All of these problems just keep piling up on you because of a decision that was the right decision at the beginning for a small town, but not a good decision for a big town.
It's almost like a chess game or something.
Exactly. It's like you have to envision what the final result needs to look like, and from the first move begin to build that way. But then you're going to run out of money if you build that way right from the get-go.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's sort of results out of this test.
Like I said, the scientific paper that discusses what they learned from it is linked in the show notes.
Oh, that's cool. So you can maybe you can learn to play SimCity Super Optimal out of that
they
paper.
don't do that, but they do go into how to approach the problem of creating an AI to even understand this.
Okay, so there's not a guide out of there.
It's not the ultimate guide to beating SimCity. No, cool. I hate to break it to you, that's not what it is.
Okay.
But, okay.
This is news for Peter.
Yes, our last story.
Palace closes its doors.
UK publisher Palace, which made a name for itself with classics such as Cauldron, Barbarian, Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit, and The Sacred Armor of Entiriad, has closed its doors. Some mags were still showing off sprite work being done for Barbarian 3 and Cauldron 3 this month, but ultimately the decision was a corporate one, as they now belong to French publisher Titus and would morph into Titus's short-lived UK publishing arm.
Yeah, again, and a company sees his demise.
Yeah, and I mean, Palace is one of those companies that was really, really instrumental in a lot of the ways that the UK business evolved. They were one of the very early guys in there. They were originally a video store, I believe, that then became a publisher of home videos, especially for horror movies and sort of exploitation films. And the very first game that Palace published was an official tie-in to the Evil Dead movie. And I mean, it's not a great game. I listened to an interview with the programmer of the game. It was literally him just learning how to program while he was making this game. But it was an interesting early tie-in with a license, with, a little bit of the shock effect, something that they did also follow through with Barbarian. And it sort of gave these UK games their own feel.
So the only name I see what they published is Barbarian, which feels like a sort of classic. Cauldron, maybe.
Cauldron 1 or 2 were huge, especially in Germany. The Cauldron series really kicked off there. Sacred Armor of Entiriad was an adventure game. You're moving from screen to screen in this weird post-apocalyptic world. It's like a jungle filled with mutated creatures. You're like this caveman, and you're trying to get to this suit of super mech armor, or just this battle suit from the before times. And the cool thing was that you see it. It's there on the first screen. You just can't get to it. And so you have to run through all these different screens, picking up objects, basically solving environmental puzzles to get back to it.
Sounds interesting.
A very interesting game. I mean, obviously very primitive by modern standards, but a very, very cool, involved game. Palace was always, trying to push the envelope a little bit, doing stuff that others weren't doing. The animation in Barbarian, which is a one-on-one fighting game, was amazing. And so they've been struggling for a few years now. They haven't really had any big hits. We've talked about their Dracula games, so they were going back to their film roots, and they were doing all this filming with live actors, and it was going to be this giant, multi-path adventure game on CD-ROM. That is obviously now a dead project, and these follow-ups to their big classics, Cauldron and Barbarian, were looking really, really cool, but they also will never see the light of day. A lot of the original people are going to leave after this, and like I said, Titus is just going to run it into the ground, but Titus itself is not really all that healthy. They got a lot of money through the stock market boom in France, but they really don't know what to do with it. The quality of their games was never that good, and it's only going downhill from here. Superman 64 is still in our future, but they're never really going to be a top tier company, and Palace is just the latest victim.
Fortunate.
Yeah, sad but true. Okay. That's the end of the show. So you have one final task as the intrepid co-host. What is the word of the day?
I don't know if I already used this, but thinking about Mortal Kombat and the spectacle, I think I will go for spectacle.
Excellent. That is a excellent word, especially in this multimedia age we are entering into. So, everybody, if you want to, check out the show notes for all the links to what we talked about, to the Patreon, to the video version of the 7 Minutes in Heaven, to all of Wouter's awesome streams. They are all down in the show notes. And Wouter, you're going to have to do some streaming of Noah's Ark now.
Oh yeah, I'm down to it. I'll do it.
Yeah, there you go. And we will put that in the show notes as well, so you can watch that. And with that being said, everybody, have fun.
Bye.
Cool.